Welcome to Objectively, the best podcast in this building happening right now. It's the PFF forecast. It is December 8th. This is the Wednesday evening edition. It feels like it's been a while since we've actually done this on a Wednesday evening in here, but it feels good. We're going to have a great podcast. We're going to go over the entire weekend slate. I have a target on my back. And we're going to talk Target. We're going to talk the Patriots. It's going to be great. Let's rock. Right before the podcast started, like 30 seconds ago, you told me that you don't like any games. And that has to be one of the biggest lies that you've ever told me. There's no way. I know you well enough, Eric, to know that you have some games that you like.
Yes and no. So it's weird. Other than Army Navy and the Grey Cup, the only
What
thing.
What sport is that, by the way?
Football. Canadian football.
For the people that are listening, for the 14 people that are listening, it's Canadian League football.
CFL. The NFL is all we got this week.
It is.
Right? We have bowls, but if you bet the bowls, obviously you can go to pff.com/greenline/NCAA if you want to look at the bowls. But this, and I am going to Army Navy this week. I'm excited about that. I've already bet a decent amount on a few nice unders. I'm waiting until it gets to 31, and then I'm going to shovel on the over. Rains in the forecast. But you don't.
MetLife Stadium.
The NFL is sort of always this treat for a bettor, I feel like, because you have NCAA, and we talked about this earlier in the week. It's in a normal week, Greenline sees value, at least a small amount, on 70 bets, right? NFL is sort of 20 at most. And so the NFL is more of a treat, but this weekend's the first weekend where it's really standing alone. Mm-hmm. You sort of look at these and you're like,
Welcome to my world.
Well, I know you don't, yeah.
Welcome to the world of people.
But then you get gifted, though. George, how much, I got to say, did you have a small house on Monday Night Football?
Oh. There were a couple of bets that I've had a small house on recently. Monday Night Football and the under was one. Alabama was the other. And
You're
I'm
welcome.
not sure we've talked enough about this. Yes, thank you. So many people out there telling us that Georgia was going to dump truck Alabama. You were wrong. But we're not here to gloat. We're here to talk about the future.
It is important, though. Let's think about this just briefly. I want to, because we are trying to. So when conditions are tail events, do you find any, because I think his name is Positive EV Analytics on Twitter, which is an interesting handle, but he was saying all the models that are right 99% of the time, welcome to your tail event. And he's hopefully you were the bookmaker and the book was the square this week, right? That was a statement that Alan Denkinson Dank will always say. It's if I can get this number, I'm the bookmaker, you're the square. I'm going to win. And in Monday night's game, that's what it was. What would you, if you had to book that game and get half the action on both sides, which is not, but if you had to book that game and make a fair line, what would you have made the total?
Man, it's so hard in hindsight, right? I think there was a lot of belief that the weather was going to calm down by the time the game started. That has to be the case, because if not, and you were seeing the photos and the images and the videos from pregame, then I think you've got to look at it and go, does any team crack 10? And I think that's got to be where you're thinking about that number. There was the only reason Buffalo scored a touchdown, to be clear, was the fact that N'Keal Harry still sees the field, right? Had it not been for that kind of fluky event, there was going to be no team getting to 10 points, but the Bills would not have scored a touchdown. But what I think is interesting, Eric, and this was my question for you, was it the fact? So if you put two random teams in that situation, couldn't you see a lot of games where there are like 8 fumbles and like, you know, maybe it gets a little like the snow starts melting or something. Like, I could have seen that game going in a lot of different ways. And the simple fact that the Patriots were able to run the ball 99% of the time, and that every Bills receiver's hands were literally frozen stone. Like, I don't want to go too aggressively there. The total was too high. And I would say, to answer your question, I'm thinking something in the either 30 or like slightly below.
Yeah, so like if that happens, right? Because I actually think back at that game and I think of, if you don't get a 65-yard run by Damian Harris and you don't get a fumbled punt by N'Keal Harry, if you don't get the Bills actually figuring out halfway through the game. So this is one of the things that really was tricky, because I bet under Mac Jones 200 yards passing. I bet under Josh Allen 230 yards passing. And I think in a different universe where Buffalo realizes that the quarterback that they drafted out of Wyoming can actually throw it into this wind, not great, certainly not league average, but good enough to win with, I think he goes over that. But like, they found that out like halfway through the half too late.
That was the biggest surprise for me from that game. We talked about this on the podcast on was it Wednesday, I believe, where it was like, hey, the weather's going to be absolutely awful. We would have liked Buffalo, I think, -2.5 in a normal, situation. In that game, there were so many reasons to love the Patriots there. Not to mention the fact that like Mac Jones is wearing a fucking scuba suit and like Bill Belichick is built for this shit. But the interesting thing about it is I thought that the Bills, Josh Allen may have never had a bigger advantage at the quarterback position. I'm not saying that like Mac Jones, we didn't even see him throw the ball. And that's the point. We saw Josh Allen throw the ball and he threw it just fine. And I don't understand how they weren't ready to take advantage of that. I don't know. It was a weird game, but I don't think we should spend too much time on that one.
But I do think that that's one thing where that's, in my opinion, winning in sports betting is about having a model. It's about having a process. It's about winning 53, 52.4, 53, 54% of the time on like just normal bets and having the process. And again, this sounds like resulting, but it's identifying these tail events and really making your mark when they happen. Obviously, the turnabout there is if you're wrong, you get killed, right? Yep. But like, I do think, obviously under for Mac Jones at 200 yards, the implied it was not a fair line, right? So then you got to be, because all the other times you're dealing with small edges, right? And you do have to, I think,
if you're betting spreads in the NFL.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you have to, if you identify situations like this, know that the book is not going to move the number that much. We already talked about this with Murray coming out and with the Dak coming out. They don't move the number that much because they don't want to be middled, and they know that sometimes, as you said, there will be enough random plays for that game to go over 39 and everybody's going to lose their shirt. And like, so the identifying those sort of like situations where the deck is clearly stacked in your favor is important.
And you can't, I think the point that you make there that stands out to me is that you can find those because the incentives for the book are a little bit different than yours, right? Mm-hmm. And so you can be, and that's, to be honest, like if you were like, hey, I'm going to be a professional sports bettor, like there are so many things that you are doing, and you're doing those in a attempt to find information that no one else has, or a sportsbook doesn't have, right? And that's really hard to do, right? Like you're scouring Instagram, you're checking in on like, DMing players' friends and like figuring out if like him and his girlfriend had a fight the night before and like what's the deal with this injury and like all this stuff that you really have to work at and like know in addition to having a model. But there's sometimes that those situations, that like piece of information that doesn't get fully filtered into the market, into the line, is actually just there in plain sight.
Mm-hmm. I think part of winning is taking advantage of those situations in addition to having a model, but like that's important. And that's something I think good to talk about.
If you would like to get more of Eric's expertise, then you can find it on PFF.com, where all of the great PFF content and all of the results of PFF's betting models, both player props and models for all of NCAA, which includes all the bowl games. They're on PFF.com right now, and you can get a PFF subscription for 25% off with promo code FORECAST, FORECAST. And you want to give that promo code out because we're the best podcast and, you know, people need to know it. So give that to your friends for Christmas. Let them get a PFF subscription for 25% off. Not only do you get all the great betting tools with an elite subscription, you also get 0 to 100 grades for every single player week to week, player props tools I already mentioned, and all of the great article content in addition to the fantasy tools if you're still alive in your fantasy football leagues. And here's something special. We'd love to hear from you guys this holiday season so we can create a wish list for PFF Forecast listeners that we can put onto the PFF website for you to use. So here's what we want you to do. Email us contact@pff.com. That's CONTACT at pff.com, and tell us what PFF feature do you love most, and what do you want? What feature would you like to see most on pff.com? And you never know. If you were nice this year, you might see your item show up on pff.com. We'll let you know. Okay. Let's head into.
Do we want to talk about objective subjective today?
No.
Don't. Okay.
No. Let's start with objectively the first game on the slate. And this is your Minnesota Vikings at home facing the Pittsburgh Steelers. Total of 43.5. Now, Minnesota favored by 3. I would like to make a...
we had under 45 in our article.
Yes.
That was published Monday morning. Is now 43.5 because we are sharp. I did look at the picks. If you take out teasers, because like we're not actually handicapping on teasers, and you know we're still above 500 for the year, 10-4 on the lock of the week. Although I forgot, it must have been because I was just ensconced with the Lions win. But did we have an over 2.5? Was that the second lock? Did we declare that the second lock for Brady?
I mean, I tried to make a petition for it.
Okay.
I'm not
going to count it. See, we're not going to inflate our records here.
I definitely gave the people that one.
Yeah.
I told them.
And that was a lock. It was an absolute lock. Although Chiefs Broncos is a lock. Come on. Yeah. I know you hate unders, and I know you were.
Does anything feel better? Like nothing feels worse while it's happening than betting an under, but the relief after you hit on an under, it's
well, you know what it is, because
it's orgasmic.
A game like the Broncos Chiefs was objectively horrendous to watch. Mm-hmm. So coming out of that game and being like, look, I had to endure that game, you had to endure that game, but guess what? I got some money from it. Like I feel like that feels great, right? Whereas like an over is like, oh, even people who didn't bet the over here got to enjoy this game. It feels a little like, the Schadenfreude maybe is a little bit absent.
So
I'm going to say this. And you might do. I like Minnesota in this game.
That was going to be my take. I also think over 43.5. Now we already have under 45.
Yeah.
But if you're looking to bet that total for the first time, I'm not going under that. Here are things that are interesting. No Adam Thielen. And I have a feeling that...
You have a Thielen.
That a lot of people will look at that and take the Steelers after that emotional victory against the Ravens. And this is exactly when I'd like to fade the Steelers. Big Ben announced his retirement last week. Big whoop-de-doo. Maybe he should have announced it last year. I just like the emotion of that game was a big divisional game. Exhale here. Oh, by the way, do you know what happened to the Vikings last week? They lost to the fucking Lions. Okay. So if like they don't figure it out this week, I don't know what will. I think it's interesting. I think a lot of people will look at this line and go, wow, Pittsburgh, only a 3-point underdog here in Minnesota on Thursday. Yeah.
This is a situation where if you just look at our baseline level ELO rating, you're not going to get to 3. We make Pittsburgh about a half a point worse than the average team on a neutral. We make the Vikings almost a point worse than the average team on a neutral. And home field advantage is not 3 points in the current NFL or 3.5. If you grade the individual units, though, with injuries, the Vikings are still a top 12 team in the NFL, whereas the Steelers are near the back half. And if you look at things like EPA or even just quarterback play, and like I said, our models are an amalgamation of QB play, EPA stuff, grade stuff, injuries factor into all of those, and then also the ELO thing, which again kind of steadies it, makes it with the market. But if you look at, for example, Pittsburgh, when they try to run the ball, it's negative 0.18 EPA. When the Vikings try to run the ball, it's negative 0.16. So you're not getting a ton of advantage there on running the ball. The Vikings run a little bit more. They'll probably run less actually with, the games that Madison has played, they've run about the same. So let's assume they run the same. But passing the ball, Kirk Cousins and the Vikings offense, 0.13 EPA per pass. Pittsburgh negative 0.03. Kirk Cousins right now second in the NFL in PFF grade, 117 passer rating when clean. 82 when pressured. Big Ben is 100 when clean, but 47 when pressured. The tricky thing I think in this game, and why I have bet Minnesota already, but I'm not I'm not betting as much as I would on a full bet. Christian Darrisaw is questionable with an ankle. Yeah. TJ Watt really did destroy a lot of what the Ravens were trying to do the other day. I do think though that to come to this, it's the Ravens are more banged up than the Vikings. They just have a more transcendent talent at quarterback who's not playing great. The Vikings defense isn't very good, but I don't think Big Ben can really stretch that thing out. So it comes down to me, the quarterback play. And the only thing I think can ruin this game for Minnesota is, starting Oli Udoh at left tackle and having him being abused by TJ Watt.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Where would you like to go next?
Okay, let me look here. I have a few totals that I'm kind of into. So let me go to the Baltimore Ravens at Cleveland. I like under 42.
Wow, that is so low. You really want to try and do this to me again, don't you?
Cleveland is.
You're feeling it. You are feeling the under train here.
Cleveland is the second best team in the NFL defensively. If you just look at our opponent adjusted grades that are adjusted for injuries, they're healthy on defense. They're good on defense. I said this before. I think from player 2 to 53, the Cleveland Browns lap the Baltimore Ravens, and especially now that Marlon Humphrey's injured. But I also think on the same side, Jack Conklin's out with a kneecap injury. He's on IR. That's a tackle. They have Njoku's on COVID-19. J.C. Tretter's injured with a knee. Jarvis Landry, a knee. Harrison Bryant is out with an ankle. All the injuries for Cleveland are on the offensive side, and you actually look at their team. They're one of the few teams in the NFL that's more efficient running the ball than they are passing. And the crazy thing, I tweeted this out. I don't know if you saw it, but I actually looked at the running backs on perfectly blocked and non-perfectly blocked plays. And Nick Chubb is averaging 4.8 yards a carry on non-perfectly blocked plays. Ezekiel Elliott's 5.8 on perfectly blocked. That just shows you how much Zeke kind of stinks. Cleveland's minus 0.06 throwing the ball. Baltimore is minus 0.06 running the ball and just 0.01 throwing, and that is with the whole season factored in. They've been worse in recent weeks. Neither guy has a passer rating when clean above 96, which is horrendous. I just think this is going to be a lot like that Sunday night game where they're just playing a pillow fight with each other, and this game ends 17-13 or something, and we're left kind of we didn't really want to watch this thing.
The Ravens offense is the reason that you're probably scared about this one, I would generally think, but that's not the case anymore. Past 4 games they've played, they have not gotten to 20 points. Those games have gone under. The Browns have been equally anemic offensively. So, as much as that's terrifying, I agree with you. Let me give you an under that is a little scary, but it's the Bills and the Bucs under 53.5. The Bills are a solid defense. I know they don't have Tre'Davious White anymore, but very good defense.
Wait a sec. I heard they were soft.
You're right. Very soft.
They gave up 14 points, and all of a sudden they're the
the Bucs, obviously without Antonio Brown, even though they scored a bunch of points last week and Brady was fantastic.
That game went under.
Yeah, that's true. It's still not the same with him. They're not the same type of explosive offense. Doesn't mean they can't put up points. But this is going to be, this is a really big game for Buffalo coming off of that loss against New England. I think they kind of like sack up and get it together. And 53.5 is kind of a lot of points. We show an edge on it on PFF.com. It's one that makes me a little queasy, but
yeah. I actually had this written down. The numbers moved a little bit, but I think you can still get it. And I'm going to talk about the exact same game. I think if you can get Tampa at 3, and let me find out what exactly that price would be. So -3.5 is +103. It's the same bet. Either that or -3 at -120 or so. I think Tampa's going to win this game because I think that they have a lot of the ingredients that make Buffalo is not deep in the secondary. Tampa is still relatively deep at wide receiver with Godwin, Evans, Perriman, guys like that. They're good at pass blocking. Where Buffalo does try to rotate a bunch of like athletic edge players. Josh Allen is still sort of, he's having a good season, not a great season, I would say. And I think you need to be great to beat Brady. They're coming off of a short week. They're going on the road. They're going on the road in an environment that's drastically different than the one that they live in. And they're not exactly healthy. Whereas the Bucs, obviously they have some issues, Brown being one of them, but they're getting healthier. You have Jamel Dean, Carlton Davis, Sean Murphy-Bunting, all healthy. I think the Bucs -3, -3.5, depending upon what line you prefer, what juice you want to pay, I think is probably the right side.
Before we get to the next side, Manscaped, your favorite, just launched a new product. They're all new ultra premium body wash and 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner. I told you I'd try it. I haven't gotten it yet. I will let you know what I think when I try it. I'm not generally a 2-in-1 guy. I gotta be totally honest with you. But I'm always looking for a good body wash. I will check it out for you because they've earned my respect because I use the Lawnmower 4.0. It's something I don't leave home without. And you can get it with their Performance Package 4.0. You'll get the Signature Lawnmower 4.0, which keeps you clean and trim all over. It's skin-safe technology, reduces cuts. There are no cuts. I will not use something if it cuts me. It's also waterproof and has incredible battery strength. I haven't charged it in like a month and it still works like a dream. You get 20% off with promo code PFF at manscaped.com, and that includes free shipping. Promo code is PFF. Clean yourself up so that you get some presents for Christmas this year. Okay. Next, I am going to go back to Kansas City. It's going to be 51, a few clouds on Sunday afternoon I'm guessing this is Nance and Romo, but I'm not sure. Vegas coming to town, +9.5. +9.5?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
I guess
the only way that they covered against the pathetic Broncos is because Daniel Sorensen caught a touchdown or caught an interception, caught a pass and returned it for a touchdown. That's the only reason they covered. Okay. That is baloney. That is such bogus. We look for things that are not right. Winning that game by 13 was not indicative of the Chiefs' play. It was a pathetic performance by Teddy Bridgewater, an embarrassing performance, to be quite honest, and a freak event with Daniel Sorensen. So 9.5 is too many points. I'm sorry.
Week 13, Washington football team, road team, 17 points. Oakland, Las Vegas Raiders, 50. The Raiders, I agree that if you get a good Raiders game, it could be high scoring for sure. When's the last time the Raiders reliably scored points? It was the Dallas game. I agree with you. How much credence do you put on this? I actually
but for them to cover, how many points do they need to cover? The Chiefs offense has been poop too.
Has it been selectively so? Because I don't know. I sort of looked at this when the Chiefs played in 19 because I don't know. I look at and I did this for a different podcast.
It's also a revenge game.
It is. You're right.
Very hard to beat a team.
Let me go through some things here to sort of demonstrate my point.
Okay.
In 2019, okay, so this and again, like I don't mean to bring everything back to when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl.
You don't.
But in 2019, the Chiefs defense was objectively awful in the first 10 games of the year, right? They start 6-4. They lose on the road to Tennessee. Mahomes comes back in that game, has 446 yards and 3 touchdowns. Here's what Mahomes' games looked like after that. All of them were Chiefs wins. 5.7 yards an attempt, 1 touchdown. 182 yards in Mexico. We bet the over in that game. 175 yards, 6 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown. 283 yards, 7.1 yards an attempt, 1 touchdown. The Denver game in the snow, 340 yards, 10 yards an attempt, 2 touchdowns. Chris's game against Chicago, 251 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then week 17, when they clinched the bye, they got a touchdown on a return by McCole Hardman, and they got a 90-ish yard run by Damian Williams. Mahomes was 174, 7 yards an attempt, 1 touchdown. People are talking about this is unprecedented for the Chiefs, and this I looked at the scheme uniqueness, with Reed, and it was dropping down. Right, it peaked at the Ravens game in 19 in week 3, and it successfully went down, and then it spiked back up in the playoffs. Obviously, when Mahomes went batshit on the whole league. Right. What weight do you give to a couple things? I think personally the Chiefs know that they don't have that much in the tank offensively because they don't have Watkins. They don't have, some guys are hurt, like their right tackle and stuff. And I also think that because their defense is playing well, they are getting in a game like the Denver game, and it gets to 13-3, it gets to 19 or 22-3 or whatever it ended up being. And they're like, we're going to shut this thing down. We're not catching balls in the red zone. We're not, and Andy just doesn't call the good plays.
Yeah.
And so I guess my issue is when you bet Oakland plus 9.5, you're sort of assuming that when the Chiefs want to turn it on, they can't, right? It's not a switch they can turn on. When I think it's a switch they can turn on, it's just that they haven't. And I think it's actually a hard question.
Yes. Now, let me be clear. I don't think that the Chiefs can turn it on like that. I do not. And if they could, they would. I mean, that's if they could, they would. If they could score more points, they absolutely would. They can't.
But what did Belichick say? And again, I think this is.
You're telling me that they're like, oh yeah, we don't need to score points, so we'll just play like
no,
dog shit?
No. But that makes no sense. When you look at his scheme uniqueness has ebbed and flowed with the difficulties of the game. You really
believe that this motherfucker is calling just shitty plays?
I'm not saying
these guys practice hard all week long. They're getting paid a shit ton of money to score points. They're like, yeah, you know what?
I don't think they're not. I think there's a difference between saying calling the shitty plays and not calling the good plays. And I don't think this is where I'll come to your side a little bit. I don't think the Chiefs' offense, talent-wise, is good enough to win to score 30 points with the median plays anymore. I think they're good enough to blowtorch a team with the good plays. Whereas I think historically in their older games, I think Andy was trying harder in 18 and 19. And now I think that it's a combination of these things.
So I'll tell you the one thing that I'm banking on with this bet that I don't know that I have that much faith in. And that is that the Las Vegas Raiders play more cover 3 than any team on the planet. And they got torched last time they played.
You think that they'll...
I mean, God, if not, you should fire everyone.
But you're making the same argument about the Raiders that I just tried to make about the Chiefs, which was... basically if push comes to shove, they're going to do the right thing.
Yeah. I'm second guessing it immediately after saying it. Let me be clear. There are a couple of matchups though that I do really like. One in particular is Andrew Wiley at right tackle. There are 79 tackles graded in pass blocking at PFF.com. Promo code forecast. He is number 76 out of 79. Lining up over there at right tackle.
Max Crosby's the most valuable edge in NFL right now.
Max Crosby, number 2 in the entire league in pass rush grade, has been an absolute monster. That is something they can certainly take advantage of. They played better in the secondary this year. Hayward Jr. has been really good. Trevon Merrick has been good. They don't really have a Travis Kelce stopper. But again, it comes down to the cover 3 stuff. So, I'm not going to belabor the point. Let's go to the next game.
So the last thing I'll say, and again, I don't mean to use this as – this could be post hoc on the half of Belichick, but they said, what was the best part of this game? And Belichick said, I didn't have to show the Bills any of our passing plays. I think there's a part of Reed that's saying, if I just can get to the next game, I don't have to show these teams my plays.
I'm not even going to get into that. I think that's just such baloney.
I mean,
you showed him one passing play where Mac Jones almost threw it to the other team. So,
I think, when you look at the scheme uniqueness stuff, it is clear that Andy optimizes for the games that are closer.
Yeah, we're giving him a lot of credit right now.
He's a Hall of Fame coach.
Yeah, we're giving him a lot of credit.
What did McDermott say? Don't give Belichick more credit than he needs. I feel like, I don't know. I don't think Andy's had a great year.
No.
But I'd like to think that he is good.
I agree. I'm not saying he's not good, but I'm not saying that. I also don't think he's so good that he's purposely being bad and still winning. I don't think this game is a game where you're going out there and playing so hard on every play that you can just be like, you know what? If I just give it 70% this week, hopefully we'll win. That's not, you can't, the games are so important. You just can't do that.
But I don't think that's you know where the Chiefs are in points per game allowed this year?
I do not. I'm assuming it's fairly decent.
8th.
Congrats.
Despite
hang a banner.
I'm not hanging a banner. I'm just saying the defense is playing well enough where they can kind of do this.
Why are we still talking about the Chiefs and the Chiefs defense?
You brought it up. I wasn't even going to bring up the game.
Next game. Go. Chiefs defense. Help us.
Under in the same game.
Help us.
Under in the same game.
Great. Next game.
Fuck you.
Total is 47.5, by the way.
It's gone down from 48 and
I would say the same, honestly, about that bet. My same worry is that the Raiders are just going to play cover 3 again. So let's forget that game. Let's go somewhere else. A completely different state, perhaps. I'll give you one.
You don't even want to live in Missouri. Okay. Let me try one. I actually don't like it.
See if you can get me excited about something here.
I know. It's just like this slate.
You don't like the slate. You're having trouble with the lock of the week.
Having trouble with
any teasers that you like.
That's where I think we'll shine this week. Okay, so a few places where you can tease some games. Okay? You could tease our Falcons up to 8.5 with a total on the game of 42.5. You can tease the Ravens up to 8.5 with a total of 42. Mm-hmm. That is a Stanford Wong teaser right there that you can get on board with.
I'd love to see that.
You can also, if you believe in Theo Bridgewater, you can tease Denver down to -2.5, total on that game 42. In addition to teasing, I believe Seattle down to -1.5. That's one that will also work. The Titans down to -2.5. That total is 43.5. Since we're all in prehistoric totals here, mm-hmm. the Wong teasers are all over the place. You can pick one of those.
Which one do you like best?
I think Jacksonville's a complete disaster, and I think Tennessee's coming off a bye. They ran for 100. They had 2 guys that ran for 100 yards against the Patriots before the bye. Yep. I don't think Jacksonville's going to be able to do that. The Titans defense is a lot better than people give them credit for.
Agreed.
If you tease that down to 8.5, down to 2.5,
I like that. I like that leg a lot. Titans defense.
Yeah.
Actually, just 20th in our opponent adjusted grading, but the Jags
better
are
than
30th.
What people think.
The Jags are 30th.
And then I think you're going to want to fade the Lions after their win. So teasing Denver down to 2.5 with a total of 42. Vic Fangio's defense is not going to mess around with this Detroit Lions offense. Jared Goff had his moment. So to me, I think Titans down to 2.5, Broncos down to 2.5 are both reasonable legs.
So I like the Titans leg a lot. Let me give you the other leg that I like most, and that's the the Ravens out to 8.5.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the Browns are coming off of a bye, but how healthy did Baker Mayfield really get? And is he going to take advantage of not having Marlon Humphrey out there?
I mean, they don't have the horses to really do that. I think the problem is that they're also just not like a good, like the Ravens struggle at like everything. So like
You think they lose this game by 9 or more?
No, but Browns coming off a bye, Ravens coming off of a hard-fought game. I mean, I actually like, this is the thing. I like Stefanski and I like the Browns, more than maybe most do. Like I actually think the Browns still have a chance to win this division. Like,
I agree. I mean, they're favored in this game.
You're not taking the Falcons, of course.
No, we can't do that. I do think the Broncos are a good one. You're also fading. Like, Detroit has been a cover machine, but like after that victory, you can't expect
Detroit's good at covering like 8.5. They're not good at covering 2.5. They're not good at winning the games, other than Minnesota, because the Vikings are the Vikings. As we all know.
Let me give you a bet that we used early in the season for the lock of the week, and that is Patrick Mahomes over 2.5 passing touchdowns. I have now come full circle on the Raiders' disaster on defense.
If we're gonna
they're gonna play cover 3 again the entire game, and Patrick Mahomes is going to.
So I talked you into this, didn't I?
Because you did. Because this is what you did. This is what you did. You have all of a sudden told me that the good plays are going to be called. By the way, this is plus like 140 in a few places.
Yeah. Because he's certainly,
he has not done this well, and you can see this on the PFF player props tool and the best bets tool. So let me go over. Let me just read you his games. Passing touchdowns. As we talked about at the beginning of the year, we rode this one. 3, 3, 3, 5, 2, 2, 0, 1, 1, 5, 0, 0. He's covered this once in his last 8 games.
You're saying he's due.
You know who that 5 was against?
Okay.
The Raiders.
We're going to go to a player prop.
It was the Raiders.
I don't hate this one, but I'm actually going to raise you a different one.
Okay.
Tomorrow night, Justin Jefferson, Vikings wide receiver.
Oh, my guy.
Over 7.5 receptions at plus 108. Jefferson, the last 3 games, 9 catches, 8 catches, 4 catches, 11 catches.
So I love Justin Jefferson. I do.
No Adam Thielen.
Right.
No Dalvin Cook, probably, to take away the
7.5 is a lot.
The Jefferson method of apportionment.
This is the biggest that his receptions prop has been all year. It's closed at 6.5 pretty consistently. Man, I do like that one. So it's that or a teaser, huh?
And this is a week for teasers, right? Like if you don't like this card and you don't want a handicap or whatever, then I think the teasers are for you. To me though, there's nothing I like. Like, so our props tool shows an edge on this play. There isn't really an edge to be had in teasers other than the fact that the basic way that football is made up, especially in a season where totals are lower, and these totals are specifically lower.
Is there a total that you like? You called one last week.
I know. I do like under in the Kansas City game, but you've talked me away from it.
Going back into that is it's asking for trouble. Okay, let's pause on this for a second. While you are deliberating, go to DraftKings Sportsbook, download the app, the official sports betting partner of the NFL.
Bet the Grey Cup.
Bet the Grey Cup. Yes, you can bet the Grey Cup and Army Navy. Should the lock of the week?
No,
Army Navy.
No, fuck that. Sorry,
What about the Grey Cup? Lock of the week for the Grey Cup.
Somebody asked me why we had to stop swearing, and I promised I would.
Yeah, you did a great job this week. But on DraftKings,
I'm only on one.
The DraftKings Sportsbook app, you can get this fantastic offer. Use promo code PFF when you sign up, and bet a single $1 for a team to score a single point, and they will give you $100 in free bets that you can then go put on all the player props and all of the Grey Cup and all of the Army-Navy game that you want. And if you're in a place that does not allow sports betting yet, shame on them. there are still huge cash prizes to be had on DraftKings daily fantasy sports contest. Use the PFF DFS optimizer to help you get some skin in the game quickly. It's hard to line up together by yourself. Just use the optimizer and pick your players that you have faith in and optimize around them. It's simple.
And profit.
DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the of the NFL. They're giving all new customers as well a free shot at $1 million. So that's kind of cool. Use promo code PFF, bet a single dollar on a team to score a point. Get $100 in free bets. You score with the promo code PFF this week on DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NFL. I've said that 40 times. You must be 21 or older. New Jersey, Indiana, Pennsylvania only. New customers are eligible. Minimum $5 deposit. $1 wager required. One per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. You have a gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Okay. You want to go Justin Jefferson tomorrow?
I kind of like the Thursday night. We're
just get it out of the way.
We're at 10-4 on our locks of the week. You know, like I don't feel
now
good.
Now is not the time to let up.
I don't feel
Eric.
good giving away Hamilton because you know why, George?
Why
Because the real sharps bet it at 4.5 and now it's 3.5.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So
the real ones took it when it was 7-1 for them to win the Grey Cup, and now it's the measly 155 on the money line this week. You just let it ride, you know, when you're a CFL sharp. So I like the Jefferson one. I think obviously this is a good use of our props tool. Deontay Johnson over 6.5 catches is -119. Jefferson over 92 receiving yards is -114. That's another one where you could think, you know, like Jefferson could get over 92.5. You're paying more juice there. I would just venture for the receptions one if I think that, you know, they're already lost 2 in a row, right? They have no Thielen. Do they just say, look, this is, I mean,
yeah.
They gave him 14 targets last week. Obviously, Pittsburgh is going to try to stop him, but
yeah, that's fair. Let's do it. Justin Jefferson, over 7.5. Our guy. It's fun to root for Justin Jefferson. We're going to do it tomorrow. There's also some great teasers. Take advantage of those. Go to pff.com and make it happen. Okay, we have one more thing to take care of, but before we do, Western and Southern, they're giving you a chance to get the ultimate game day feast. And you can enter to make that happen by asking Chris, our good friend and boss, a question about anything, football, financial, savvy, whatever it is. That's what Western and Southern helps you with. They make sure you have a game plan for your money. And you can ask Chris a question about how to make that happen at westernsouthern.com/askchris. I also suggest you just ask him any question. Like, think outside the box a little bit. And he will answer it on his podcast, the Chris Collinsworth podcast, and on the Western and Southern Instagram. And here's what happens. If you ask a question, you'll be entered for a chance to win the ultimate game day feast on football's favorite Sunday. You know which one I'm talking about. Happens in February. They cover catering up to $2,500 and coordinate your order from a restaurant near you to have it delivered. There's also a rumor that Eric will show up for your Super Bowl party on February 13th. I'm not supposed to say Super Bowl, so redact that. Anyways, go to westernsouthern.com/askchris to enter right now.
Is that real?
No.
I'm going.
That would have been kind of great. That's, by the way, your second
Dang it.
Second swear word. Okay, the one last thing we have to take care of is this. I've gotten a lot of great feedback on Twitter about a comment that I made this offseason where the Patriots went out and signed a lot of players. They signed Jonnu Smith,
I think you're
Devon
making a mistake, George.
Jalen Mills, Hunter Henry,
I think you're making a mistake.
Kendrick Bourne, Nelson Aguilar.
I think you're making a mistake.
On what? On responding?
Yeah.
No, I've got this.
Okay.
Don't you worry. And I said that it was like the Patriots. They had all this money, and it was like spending that money at Target. Now, I'm going to get into this a little bit more, but I want to start with the most important part of this, which is the way that Matthew Judon responded to this, because it was going around Patriots Twitter, and he tweeted about it, and he talked about it in a really, really great piece that Doug Kyde, who works for PFF, wrote on the Patriots. And last year I said that the Steelers were the most overrated team in the NFL, and like their players came after me in a very immature and not impressive way. And not surprisingly, the season didn't work out for them. But I want to call attention to something that I think that's it's important to note, because people get really emotional and they go over the top and they say things that just doesn't contribute to having fun with football. It's fun to comment about football. It's probably way more fun to play football and then prove people wrong in some way, shape, or form. And I'll get into that in a second, whether it's right or wrong or whatever. The point is that if you disagree with something, disagree with it in a way that doesn't tear other people down and, act like the smaller person. And I actually think that Matthew Judon did this in a really great way. He kind of took the high road. He had a little fun with it. He mentioned it in the interview. You have to ask George. I think Target is a cool place. And I really respect the hell out of that. And whether I'm right about going to Target and overspending on a lot of these players, I'll get into in a second. But the bigger picture is I think Matthew Judon is a really cool dude. I really like the fact that he's having success in a new place and that he got paid. And he deserves it. And I can't find his cleats on the My Cleats auction on NFL.com right now. But the two places that he was raising money for are American Cancer Society and the International Justice Mission, which I found really interesting because those are two things that we feel really passionate about. I fucking hate cancer. It has really impacted my family, as it has so many. And so I can't find the cleats. I can't bid on them. I was going to try and win the cleats. If I find them, maybe I still will. But I will be making a donation of $500 to the American Cancer Society in Matthew Judon's name, and doing so in the name of let's have fun with football. And I think that's what everyone is here to do. And whether you're right or wrong, or you say something that ends up, being right in the end or being wrong in the end, acknowledging that a lot of this shit is random anyways. And the point is that you enjoy the ride along the way. That's what this is all about. So with that being said, I'm going to talk about whether I think I was right or not.
See, I think this is so, George, that was wonderful. Really, that was you're inspirational. You're an inspiration to me.
Right. Absolutely.
I actually think okay, I'll say this, I agree with everything you just said. And I also think that this is what makes it hard in being in the prediction space. And this is why I love the fact that we gamble, because my biggest thing is the mantra that I've had in my head lately is the scoreboard is the only scoreboard, which is because I'm somebody who has had very, I think, strong takes weekly held, and there are still people who try to roast me over the Shanahan not being on my offense play caller list or whatever. And it's and what I say to people is the great thing about this is you can bet against me on the betting markets. It's meaningless to come at, and it's meaningless for me to explain myself. So I think that's one thing where I obviously want to hear your explanation, but I also think sometimes these explanations don't matter. And that's why I think the betting is the big thing, because betting forces you to abandon the bad takes. And if your take is actually good, the Kirk Cousins signing was bad, you can continue to bet against it and make money, while these other people flail their arms and they don't,
Well, but so here's what I was going to talk about. Because again, to be very clear, if there's anyone that has restraint against trolls on Twitter, it's this guy.
Of the two of us, it's you.
It's this
guy. Yes.
I'm not doing this because I've been tagged by Patriots fans. I don't give a shit. Who really cares? I'm doing this because I actually think the player in this case really handled it well in a spot where he could have not. And I respect the hell out of that. And I want to support that. And what I want to do is hopefully call attention to whoever's listening out there that that's how you should handle things. And if I can do so while also providing a small amount of money in the grand scheme of things to a cause that really needs it, hell yeah, that's a great reason to do it. So that I'm doing because I respect Matthew Judon and the way he talked about it. Like, that's how it should be done. Whether you're right or wrong thing, you're right. You can go to the betting markets. But I do think it's an interesting thing to talk about. It's content. It's what we're doing. It's what the people want. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to look at some of the player grading for some of these players. That's what I'm going to do. Let's start with Jonnu Smith, who was the first signing here. Jonnu Smith, 54th out of 76 tight ends.
He's basically a blocking tight end for the Patriots.
Maybe not. Yeah, maybe not.
He's a blocking tight end for
I'm going to also say this. The point of that, let me start with this actually. The point of saying target as well is not to say that target sells shitty stuff. That's not it. You know what the other analogy that I use all the time is? It's In-N-Out. You know who loves In-N-Out more than anyone else? Me. But I use this analogy all the time. I'm not going to go spend $100 on an In-N-Out burger as much as I love In-N-Out. And the point was that you can get really good things at Target, but you're not going to overspend for them. And I thought that was the point with the Patriots. Jonnu Smith, I actually think is, look, he's not performing particularly well this year. I think that was, if you sell him at Target, you sell him at Target. Hunter Henry is playing well, 16th out of 76 tight ends. Very nice. Kendrick Bourne. Kendrick Bourne has been solid. 17th highest graded wide receiver. He's been really solid. Nelson Aguilar, 66th of 129 wide receivers. Maybe not. Devon Gottschalk played really well the other night. Overall this year, 46th out of 125 defensive interior players. Jalen Mills, 64.1 PFF grade, 55th out of 118 players. And then Matthew Judon, who I think we've talked about his grade before, like his pass rush grade is 20th out of 106 edge defenders. That's really, really solid. Really solid. Run defense grade hasn't been as fantastic, but like as a pass rusher has been really, really good. And was a quality signing, really quality signings, had a fantastic year. And by all accounts is an awesome dude. And I'm a huge, huge supporter of that. So all of those are like fine. The point that I was going to kind of make here is that like no one is talking about any of those signings if Mac Jones is not playing kind of like out of his mind. And I think that's kind of the big takeaway for me is that a lot of this is about you can bring all those players in and overpay them for kind of their performance, but it looks really good if the quarterback is playing well.
Yeah, I mean, the same thing's true. Like I joke about this, but Sammy Watkins, 3 years, $48 million is a dog, is a bad signing if Pat doesn't become the MVP. Mm-hmm. But because Pat's the MVP, like the Frank Clark trade doesn't have the negative impacts. You're right. And, not to look back and say, we all like Justin Fields over Mac Jones. We like Zach. And like, this is again, the Zach Wilson thing. Like I was the biggest Zach Wilson proponent there was. And I still think he'll be okay. But if I bet the Jets every single week this year, I'd be broke. And I lost a decent amount of money betting on them in September. You have to sometimes abandon your beliefs or throttle back on them a little bit. And if somebody wants to come at me, like, that's a good point. To me, I think one of the things is, okay, what do you have on your side? You have oftentimes rookie quarterbacks will hit a wall. If Mac Jones hits a wall, or their schedule becomes harder because the Patriots have played the third easiest schedule so far. Do these extra signings? Does Jalen Mills make up the slack for that? The answer is probably no. Mm-hmm. Does Nelson Aguilar make up the slack for that? The answer is probably no. Does Devon Gottschalk make up for the slack for that? The answer is probably no, right? And so, again, to me, and this is why, and I don't even know why I responded to this. I think it was because you tagged me in our podcast. But I'm like, we have to also stop having these victory laps after 13 games. Like it's agonizing to a certain extent.
Yeah, if you let it bother you though, like.
But it also hurts. Like, think about this. Our friends at Football Outsiders, they currently have the New England Patriots winning the Super Bowl 33% of the time.
Yeah.
Right now. That is a fair price, market price of plus 200. Last year, entering the playoffs, after all of the uncertainty of the playoffs gone, the Chiefs were plus 200. Like, whether it's the math community, the football, like we cannot overreact to these things. And I think that's part of the message here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not overreacting. All I did was.
I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying like that's kind of where I am.
Yeah.
From a.
No, it's something that it's fun to talk about. Like I think at some point like there are things that are just fun to talk about, and this was one. So that was my piece. If you have any issues with me, you know where to find me. I probably won't respond, but I love you. That was our podcast. We'll be back on Sunday evening after the Packers-Bears nightmare. We love you all. Peace out.